に落ちておきますか？
はい。
はい
そうですね。僕だけ一人、はい、上がっときます。Hi, hello everyone. This is Taro Kawashita. Currently, I'm working on Sony for software engineer and technology evangelist. Today, we'd like to introduce awesome speaker for DevRelCon Tokyo 2021. On this interview session, it takes 15 minutes for this interview. We ask them to introduce themselves and the summary and the essence of this talk. So I invite to the awesome speaker, Jaime. Hi, Jaime.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Thank you. I'm staying in Tokyo. Currently in Tokyo is at noon. What time is it now for your country or your location?
So I'm in the Seattle, USA area, and it is 8 p.m. here.
8 p.m. Oh, this is a very good time.
Yeah, just after dinner, and it's summertime, so it's actually still kind of bright outside for the next half an hour or so.
Oh, great. After this session, what do you do in today?
After this interview session, I'm kind of a late night person, so I probably will watch Netflix and Crunchyroll and read articles online like from The Verge or TechCrunch, etc. So yeah,
great. And I remember that I met you 2 years ago, DevRelCon Tokyo 2019. So
that's right.
Yes, so I talk to you, and I attend. Currently, I'm working in Sony. I attending some speakers to invite to our vape showroom. Do you remember to show in my vape tour?
I absolutely do. I was very appreciative that you you allowed us to come, and it was really exciting to see some of the stuff that Sony is working on. So it's incredible.
Yes, currently COVID-19 situation, you cannot visit in Tokyo. Of course, after the next year, could you please try to come in Japan and Tokyo?
Oh, absolutely. When I was there at DevRelCon Tokyo 2019, that was the first time I'd ever been to Tokyo, to Japan, and it's a beautiful city and a beautiful country, and I'm very excited about some point in the future being able to go back out there after the pandemic is done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And okay, in this interview, we'd like to share about yourself and your talk of the summary of the essence. Firstly, please introduce yourself, if you would.
Sure. So my name is Jaime Lopez Jr., and I manage the developer advocate team over at Jack Henry, which for those of you who don't know, so in the United States, Jack Henry is a major financial services technology provider. So banking as a service and payments and other kinds of technology. And my team is the developer advocate team that manages the developer relations for our open banking APIs. And my talk at DevRelCon Tokyo 2021 virtual edition is titled Becoming a Manager in DevRel. So previously at DevRel Asia 2020, I talked about being the first DevRel at your company. How do you deal with that as an individual? Now this is sort of the follow-up that says, okay, working as an individual person who's contributing in developer relations is tough. It can also be very tough when you have a team now and when you have to manage, and it's very different as a challenge to be a manager. So it's very similar in the vein of providing some of my experience and the problems and challenges and how I work to overcome those is sort of the idea for the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Very interesting. When do you promoted your manager in your team?
So I got promoted maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Really?
Like officially, manager title. But I had been leading the team for maybe 4 months prior to that. So it's one of those things where developer relations is so new to our company that I was the first and only developer relations person who had ever been hired at the company when I started about a year and a half ago. And there literally was not a manager title. Like, they've got a big old list of titles for software engineer, for software engineering manager, product manager, designer manager. It didn't exist. So it took a little bit of time for the corporation to make the appropriate job and move me over and move my teammate instead of being a peer, have them be a reporting relationship. So it slowed things down a little bit, but really I've been effectively manager for the past, 8-ish months probably.
How many members do you support and facilitate in your role?
How many teammates how many
members? How many team members?
So only one currently, one direct report, although we do work a lot with folks in the engineering team, product management, marketing, sales. So kind of what you would expect with DevRel, that it's very, very broad sort of work. So it can be a little bit challenging because there's more that we can do, because it was one person and now it's two. So we've doubled the amount of capability. It doesn't always work like that, because it also means that I had to train up and still training up the my teammate, because they came in, there was a lot that was in motion, and kind of like when I joined, there was a lot they had to learn to come up to speed. Thankfully, with me here to help, but also somewhat more challenging as well, because the product has expanded and evolved where it's a bigger scope. So it's a lot more to learn. So that's going to be one of the things I'll talk about as well, of like, how do you bring people on board and how do you set them up for success? How can they be, able to do a good job when it's a very, very small team? It's not, I love the work coming out of like Stripe and Twilio, Slack. They have a lot of good work and a very large, sizable team that does that. So we always try to say, how can we, have the bar up here and meet what they're doing when we have a budget way down here? Okay, how can we be effective? That's part of the challenge.
Yes, your talk is very interesting to please share your step for manager in DevRel. So what is the most important point in your talk?
The most important point will be that when you become a manager in developer relations, and I don't know that, to be honest, if it's unique to being in DevRel versus being manager at software engineering or manager of UX design team. You have to learn to let go, that you're not going to be doing as much of the day-to-day work. It's certainly useful to continue to be able to do some of that, because you need to make sure that your skills stay up to date and you actually know what you're talking about. But rather than saying, we need a new tutorial, or we need to write a new part of documentation for the API reference. When it was just me, it's like, well, it's going to be me doing it, and I'm going to have to do it my very particular ways, and maybe it comes out great, maybe it doesn't, but that's all on me. When you're a manager, doing that work yourself isn't always the right thing to do. For one, you want to make sure that you are able to focus at a higher level with strategy and looking forward, not just what's narrowly right in front of you. Also, you want to make sure that there's space for success and career growth for the other person. If you're always me, I'm always taking everything, how will the other person learn? They have to go and get their hands dirty, and they have to learn how to do it themselves. They won't necessarily do it the way that you would do it. That's okay. And you have to learn to let go and say, okay, maybe their style is a little different. As long as they follow our general standards and it's good, then we'll be happy.
Okay, thanks. Generally, manager have the role to get the budget and the hiring and define the strategy. So this is I think that this is a general manager's role. So what is the different is a development manager?
For DevRel manager, for DevRel manager, you do have to do those. Like I did have to participate in coming up with, what are the interview questions going to be? How are we going to evaluate candidates? Helping to source some of the candidates, reaching out through my network and everything. In terms of budgeting, I haven't had to deal too much with that, because the budgeting exercise happens every year. So I haven't really gone through that cycle yet. I have been involved in conversations with my manager, so budgets that roll up. I think one thing that could be different for DevRel is that if somebody asked you, what budget do you need? It varies so differently based on what your strategy is for the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years. And it also depends on what's happening now. Let's compare that to if you were a software development manager, and maybe you had an Android team or a backend API team. You more or less know what you're going to need. Like, well, we have this amount of work. We're going to need this many more people, or we're going to need, to buy this software license, or we're going to need this server upkeep. With DevRel, so he says, well, what do you need? It's like, well, depends. We could spend a lot of time and effort putting more effort into technical writing. So maybe we might hire a technical writer, or maybe we want to spend more time on making our developer portal stronger and more self-service. Well, you might need a front-end engineer or back-end engineer to help make that possible. And now that we're, hopefully coming out of the pandemic in the next several months, you might say, well, we might actually need some people who can get out there and do presentations and go to meetups and do other things. And it's just such a wide variety of things that you have to keep in mind. And there's never going to be enough budget for all of it, right? You can always have a small budget, and you have to be very careful with how you spread it out.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, could you please say a message to participate from your talk?
Yeah, so I really hope that folks can come in and really think about, if you are a manager, there might be something that you can learn. Maybe you might have a different perspective you'll learn from me. If you are an individual contributor and you have thoughts about being a manager, I will hopefully tell you things that are both, good and bad about it. And maybe you might say, wow, that's really for me. I want to do that. Or maybe you might say, whoa, I don't want to deal with any of that. I don't want to become a manager. I'm very fine being an individual right now. And the key thing for folks who are interested in my talk is I hope you've learned at least, one thing. It's going to be several different things I'll talk about, but if you can learn one thing, I'm hoping that will make it worth it for coming to my session.
Great, very interesting. Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, very interesting your talk. So, thank you for this participate in this interview session. And yes, currently you can get the ticket. And please stay tuned. And thank you, Jaime. Thank you very much. And we'd like to show your talk in 5th June.
But thank you very much for inviting me. It was great seeing you again, getting a chance to talk again, and I will see you and everybody else virtually online at the conference. So have a good one. Bye.
Okay, Jaime, thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to this interview. In Jaime's session, title is Becoming a Manager in DevRel. If now you are working in DevRel, but you want to expect it to promote these manager jobs, please stay tuned in this talk. Okay, today's interview session is ended. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah, bye-bye.